half of all South Africans don't have enough to eat, yet the country's wastes a third of all the food it produces. Fruits, vegetables, as well as cereals account for the bulk of this waste. So to discuss this matter, I'm joined now by Kate Stubbs from Interwaste for this conversation. Kate, thanks a lot for joining us this afternoon. What is alarming is the figures. 10 million tons of food waste every year. That is food that is produced, but it's never consumed.
Yes, it's a terrifying statistic. It's a third of all the food we produce in the country. And when you consider that 12 million South Africans go to bed starving every night, the fact that we throw away or waste so much food produced is startling.
Yeah, I mean, startling is to say the least, but to actually know that there are fruits and vegetables and cereals, for example, that could be going to disadvantaged homes, that could be going to homeless shelters, that could be given to people on the streets, and we're choosing to waste it. What does that say about our culture, and where does private sector play a role in that?
I think in general our culture towards waste management is poor. I think we need some context there that only a small portion, or let's say 10% of the food that's wasted actually is by the time it's produced and at consumer level. 50% of the wastage actually happens in the production part, and then about another 25% in the logistics processing part of food waste. So we need to look at food waste holistically from the time it's sort of been harvested or grown right to the time it's reaching our plates. But from a private sector perspective, we all need to be much more mindful about how we consume and waste food. I think in our own homes we probably eat too much, buy too much and waste too much. And we really need to think more carefully about how we manage our food.
Let me ask you this, Kate. Do we still have a lot of restaurants as well as a lot of retailers, especially when it comes to food stores, that when particular packages or particular consumables are just before the best before date, they would rather opt to throw out the food as opposed to maybe package it and repackage it and give it to maybe homes and shelters, etc. Are we still facing that phenomena when a lot of these retailers are taking food that maybe expires in 2 days or 3 days' time and choosing to waste it as opposed to repackage, or not even repackage, but to give it away?
I think there's always a concern about brand integrity as well as health risks, but you do see, actually on a positive note, a lot of retailers have teamed up with charities that when food is just about to reach its expiry date, that is distributed to charities through specialized networks. So there certainly is a much more positive trend of that happening. Probably more in the restaurant hospitality space, we'd probably see a bit more wastage. But I know certainly some of the bigger retailers have some good programs in place to distribute food that's just before expiry.
Let's talk about it from a government perspective, because government has been eyeing to actually halve food wastage by 2030. Do you see that this is actually feasible and possible? And I'm just looking at the fact that 10 million tons of food wasted that could be consumed is being thrown out. That's a problem.
It's a problem, and I think it's an ambitious target because it's complex. And it requires probably a lot of innovation and structure to support that reduction, especially when a lot of that waste is happening high up in the chain. So how do we help farmers? How do we help the processing part of food? How do we help reduce the waste there? And when we think of climate change, which is real, the science is there. You know, farmers are affected by droughts. How do we support them with new innovation and technology to ensure we're growing the right crops and the right type of foods and getting biodiversity back into our system to ensure that the food is not wasted there? So it really takes a collective effort, and probably we really need to leverage technology and innovation to assist in making sure we produce food more effectively and efficiently, and to make sure we're growing the right food at the right time. I think we've become lazy in terms of the types of food we're eating, and we really need to go back to nature and look at producing foods that are more diverse, to support the soils as well as water consumption, resource consumption as a whole.
Well, that speaks to the disparity, especially when it comes to even households. So one household may be throwing away a big portion of their food, and the other household may not even have food to throw away in the first place. So then how then do we start reaching out to households, particularly that are guilty? I'm going to say guilty here, but of actually throwing food out and wasting food.
Yeah, I think that I read an interesting article in the UK. There's an app called Olio, and it's a food sharing app. So it gives the ability, say you're going on holiday and you still have a fridge full of food, you can publish that and share your food, you can donate it, you can sell it. It really changes your mindset about how you look at food. And I think we have such extremes in South Africa. We have so many people starving, and yet we have so much obesity. It almost balances each other out. And how do we connect those two? And how do we make people more responsible for their food? And it comes really back to and that's why you have World Food Day, being conscious, being mindful of the food you're consuming and the waste that you're creating, and how there are lots of charities around the country, lots of systems and processes where you can engage, be it from a donation, a volunteering perspective, and also just looking at your own food waste at home and deciding what you do with it.
Kate, you've certainly given us a rude awakening this afternoon, so thanks a lot for joining us and shedding some light on that. Kate Stubbs is Director of Business Development and Marketing at Interwaste, giving us the starting figures really around how much food we actually waste as a country. 10 million tons. Let that actually sink in.